Hello and welcome to this video tutorial on data insertion. The concept of data insertion is to insert data into a cell or range of cells in the spreadsheet. This data can then be used within the project, where it can be displayed by components, processed using formulas, combined with other data, and so on. In this example, a selection from this drop-down box will determine the data to show in this chart. First, I'll set the options for the drop-down box. With it selected, open the General drawer of the Properties panel. Click the data binding icon above the List Items property. Now we can see that there is some data already in the spreadsheet, and I'm looking for cells that contain the visitor types. So I'm going to select these 4 cells here and click Confirm. These will now be the options listed in the drop-down box. I also want to set one of these as a default selection. So in the Interactivity drawer, I'll change the selected item to Label Type and bind that property to Total Visitors. If I switch into Debug Mode, we can see that the default selection of Total Visitors is already selected, and on clicking the drop-down box, the other visitor types are also listed. So now let's set the data insertion properties. Expand the Data Insertion drawer in the Properties panel. There's already a default series here that we'll rename to Visitor Data. And the type we'll set to column because, as we can see in the spreadsheet, the data for each option is set out in columns. When an option is selected, we want the data in the associated column to be copied into the destination cells, which I've already highlighted here in yellow. Now we need to set the source of the data, so click the data binding icon above the source property field. And we're not just going to select one column of data, we're going to select the range of cells that contains all of the data. Now we need to set the destination for the data to be copied to, and it's important to select enough cells to accommodate the data that will be copied across. So we know that we need enough cells for 12 months of data. If the user selects option 1 from the drop-down box, which in this case is the Adults option, then column 1 from the source data will be copied to the destination cells. If option 2, the Children option, is selected, then column 2 will be copied across, and so on. The last step is to set the properties of the chart so that it will display the data of the selected option. So select the chart and expand the data drawer in the Properties panel. Then bind the Values property to the cells that contain the copied visitor data. And also bind the category labels to the cells containing the months so that the columns in the chart are correctly labelled. And I think I'll just reorientate those labels so that we can actually read them. Okay, let's switch to debug mode and see what happens. So firstly, we can see that the chart is populated by the data from the default selection of total visitors. But if I select another option, we see that the chart data changes to reflect the option chosen. This is just one way that we can use data insertion. A number of the components have data insertion properties, so it's worth spending some time experimenting and getting to know how you can use data insertion to make your projects more versatile. That's the end of this tutorial on data insertion. If you'd like to learn more about using Squirrel, do take a look at our other tutorials and videos.